Right now, the Pokrovske meat grinder is spinning up again with renewed force. The Russian army has gone mad, advancing like a black cloud. The Ukrainian armed forces have run out of patience. A fierce counterattack is underway on several fronts at once. Putin's forces haven't suffered a massive failure, but like rabid beasts, they're pushing deeper into Ukraine. These events have made everyone's hair stand on end. The artillery accomplished the impossible and the drones finished the job. All of this is covered in our episode Hellpoint. A brutal onslaught. Pokrovske is once again under attack by the Russian army. Putin's army is storming the front with an autumn offensive. Artillery is advancing there in columns, an unexpected twist, while on two other fronts, they're retreating at a frantic pace. Near Sumy and Zaporizhzhia, the occupiers bolted as if their feet were on fire. Epic videos spread across the internet instantly. Russian soldiers hurriedly put out fake reports of their successes, but what a blunder, they only dug themselves in deeper. What is really happening on the front line? All the details coming up in just a moment.
Ukrainian defense forces repelled 170 attacks just in the past day. Our command acknowledges that the autumn phase of the Russian offensive has begun. The occupiers have only a few months left to improve their positions before winter.
It's clear that the objective here is to try to capture a major Ukrainian population center, whether that's in the Pokrovske area, the Kostiantynivka area, or even Dobropilya or Mirnohrad. If we're talking about the Lyman direction or Siversk, part of the goal is also to try to spend another military winter fighting in urban battles, because it's obvious that fighting out in the open fields will be much more difficult. Obviously, Ukraine's defense forces do not agree with this.
However, this time Russia has decided not to spread its forces across the entire front line, but to systematically apply pressure at a single point. Having failed to achieve their objectives for the summer, the Russian command has now decided to reinforce the Donetsk direction by sending additional troops there.
It is clear that the Pokrovsk direction truly remains a priority, and the priority continues to be the Donetsk region. This is the strategic objective that the Russians failed to accomplish during what they called the major summer offensive.
At the same time, the Russian command seems to have realized that Pokrovsk cannot be taken with small assault groups. And now, after months of conserving equipment, the Ukrainian armed forces have started to spot it more and more frequently in this direction. However, the infantry still isn't being provided with armored vehicles, but there has been an increase in artillery.
They are bringing in heavy equipment there as well, and people who are actively engaged in combat operations in that specific area confirm that there are numerous self-propelled artillery units of various modifications, meticulously conducting extensive artillery shelling, in addition to the reconnaissance drones and everything else we already know about and have previously documented.
However, in order to gather thousands of new soldiers near the long-suffering Pokrovsk, they had to be redeployed from other directions. After all, Russia simply has no unused reserves left. Analysts report. In the army, this has been called the largest rotation. In reality, the occupiers are simply being brought to Donetsk region to replace the eliminated assault groups.
But when troops are withdrawn, that's not the style of the Russian Federation. For them, their so-called untouchable reserve is just troops being moved from one part of the front to another, being redeployed from the Kherson direction, from the Sumy direction. So this rotation is most likely not really a rotation at all.
After months of exhausting their units trying to break through the defenses of Pokrovsk, the Russian military leadership decided to bypass the city from the flanks and simultaneously attempt to capture major logistical centers of the Ukrainian armed forces.
Of course, we must not forget the Novopavlivka direction of the front, so one of the most active areas is the southern border of Donetsk region, the administrative border of Donetsk region. It is clear that the enemy is also trying, in the Huliaipol direction, which is already in Zaporizhzhia region, to advance along the left southern flank towards Pokrovsk.
At the same time, the Ukrainian General Staff reports that these enemy attempts have not been successful. On the contrary, due to the reduction of enemy groupings in the north and south of the front line, our forces managed to advance both in Zaporizhzhia and Sumy regions. Despite the fact that the front in Sumy region is moving towards the Russian border, it is not coming easily at all.
Assaults are happening here constantly, regularly. The enemy is very actively using infantry and lately has been even more actively deploying various drones, both FPV, regular radio-controlled, and FPV on fiber optics, as well as many other types of unmanned aerial vehicles. They are continuously delivering fire strikes on positions at the front line, so the fact that the front line in this direction remains relatively static is precisely thanks to the effective work of our units.
Analysts emphasize that in Russian documents, everything is reported as a success. The Kremlin reports constant victories, and the general staff believes that troops from there can be redeployed to Pokrovsk. In reality, however, these fake reports only lead to the occupiers losing new territories and their own soldiers.
The enemy's fake reports about a security zone in the Sumy and Kharkiv regions are nothing more than an attempt to cover up the failure of their operation, which has turned into a dead end for the enemy and resulted in tens of thousands of losses. This year alone, in the operational zone of the Kursk military district, our forces have eliminated 19,080 enemy soldiers and more than 25,000 have been wounded.
The Russians are also not seeing any success in the south. Having sent part of their units to the Pokrovsk direction, those who remained are suffering a complete fiasco. In particular, according to the Ukrainian command, 57 units of Russian weaponry and equipment have been destroyed there over the past 2 days.
An exclusive, shown for the first time, this is how our forces are managing to strike Russia, truly historic moments of these attacks. After these fierce drones strike, the Russians go into panic mode and everything slips out of the Kremlin's hands. Top oil refineries are burning down right now. Massive explosions and large-scale fires are scorching Russia more and more each time. Gasoline has become scarce. Could the end really be near? Don't miss out. You'll find out everything in just a moment.
What is this? We didn't go to the oil base anymore, so what is this?
This is the launch point for our long-range combat drones. It's a secret location, because this is where preparations for deep strikes are made to launch drones far into the enemy's rear. The soldiers of the 1st Battalion of the 14th Unmanned Systems Regiment are in high spirits. But they say the real emotions are still ahead. This is a dose of Ukrainian fury flying off to take revenge on Russia, and we will be waiting for the results. Kaspar, the battalion commander, is showing us the drones, and in moments like these, he always wants to be close to his men.
It's going to be a lot of fun. It'll be funny, it'll be beautiful, it'll burn, it'll blaze. I think I'll hit them so hard they won't know what hit them.
Kaspar warns that you can't let your guard down here. The Russians are constantly searching for the locations from which our drones are launched. The launches are taking place on the Day of Remembrance for the Fallen, so today the spirit of our comrades is here. And not just for the adults. We know the drones will fly toward Russia, but as for exactly where, they can only guess.
Look, if some oil refinery is on fire, that's not us. It's not us, it's some good drones launched by who knows whom.
The number of aircraft heading across the border is classified information. How many planes are taking off?
Enough. I'll just say it's enough. Remember, it's like with that Rolls-Royce. How much engine power is enough? Enough.
But the operation can be considered successful even if just every third drone manages to break through Russian air defenses.
These
drones are smart.
It already knows its target, where it's flying.
And they're expensive.
But the significant and lasting damage they'll inevitably cause will be with a coefficient of XXX. So all of this is economically justified.
And for each drone, it's a one-way trip.
It will be death for Ukraine.
Good luck, little one. Go on. And now, on command, they take off into the sky one after another. Kaspar says we'll find out about the consequences of the strike from outraged Russians.
There will be enough of these stories today. Why us? Well, friends, you're all involved. Why us?
Now all we can do is wait. Meanwhile, somewhere in the Krasnodar region. Is that a UAV? What is that? It's already on fire. Local residents report that near Galenjik they hear sounds that, I quote, resemble explosions. In Krasnodar, they're counting so-called bangs. The local head urges city residents to remain calm and trust only official sources.
Yes.
The so-called official sources report that there were 8 explosions. The drones were flying low and buzzing, a fire broke out, but at the moment it's unclear what's actually burning.
Here it is.
The oil refinery is on fire, visible from Yablonovsky. Residents are asked not to take photos or record videos. Later they clarify that only fragments fell. Only one technological unit was damaged. The fire covers an area of 300 square meters. Supposedly 30 drones were destroyed, and yes, it was the oil refinery, with a capacity of 3 million tons of fuel per year.
The oil depot was hit after all. There's black smoke from that side, and the emergency services said it really is there.
Air traffic is being restricted in Volgograd and Sochi, and movement on the ground is also limited, including on the Yablonovsky Bridge and nearby streets.
We're not going to the oil depot anymore.
We won't be going to the oil depot anymore, because it's burning pretty badly all around the perimeter. Smoke is rising.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian drones continue to keep flying high in the sky.
You can hear it, there it goes. There it goes.
This is already the Samara region, the city of Syzran. An even more powerful oil refinery, 8.5 million tons of fuel per year.
They're probably shooting directly at it.
We need to get out of here. All of Samara is covered in smoke. Everything is black. Something's exploding again over there. A drone just hit it.
Judging by the locals' comments, this isn't the first time something has hit here.
The refinery is burning again, and there was a siren.
A loud announcement is asking Russians not to go outside. The planes are currently being stopped at the local airport. Let's go, or they'll close Samara soon. Officially, they report that the drone attacks were prevented, and they only mention an attempt. While Russian oil refineries were burning, the night in Ukraine was not an easy one. Shaheds and ballistic missiles flew, but the attacks did not go unpunished. Natalia Horna, Ihor Siri, Oleksiy Tsober, Pavlo Sadovnikov, TSN. 1+1 United News.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
A battle is raging near Zaporizhzhia. A few strikes from our howitzers and the enemy is already falling back from their positions. These are truly intense scenes. The Russians immediately respond and launch a counterattack, but they overlooked one thing. Ukrainian drones have complete control over the battlefield. Our defenders struck unexpectedly and skillfully. How did it happen? Watch right now.
In reality, these days they're not exactly roaming the steppes of Zaporizhzhia as they used to. The artillerymen, self-propelled gunners of Ukraine's 118th Separate Mechanized Brigade.
We don't drive around anymore, we don't go anywhere because, as you can imagine, the area is swarming with drones.
Moscow's drones, both reconnaissance and strike, are constantly circling in the sky over the Orikhiv-Tokmak section of the front, searching for targets. They attack around the clock, striking as soon as they spot any movement on the Ukrainian side.
We had just finished firing, barely rolled back, and right away, right in the dugout, basically, in the upper shelter, immediately.
So we have to keep working. The artillerymen of the 118th mostly have to work from concealed, well-camouflaged positions.
So as soon as I receive the order, we immediately drive out, engage the target, fire, and then carefully pull back from the position.
Right now we're working on infantry targets.
So, is there infantry movement?
Well, there are 2 or 3 people, but they're moving around, so we don't engage them.
Usually, says Vaka, the gunner of the 155 MITM 109, it only takes a few shells to permanently quiet down another group of Russian infantry.
2 or 3 shells.
We can see that they are experiencing a shortage of available manpower, so to precisely locate our positions, they might even send, let's say, 10 conscripts directly to their deaths.
Such attempts by the Russians to infiltrate infantry from the southeast direction near Malatokmachka happen every day. For its crew, admits Ovnyuk, the commander of the self-propelled Mista, it's the 5th one. To all of them, they're just numbers, coordinates, targets.
We mostly work with numbers, but they regularly send us videos so we understand what we're firing at. For many guys, it can even significantly boost their morale, so to speak, especially if the job was completed well.
fired directly at their fortified position, and then almost immediately they started firing back at us with considerable force. Basically, we hit their position, and then they tried to hit us back, but they didn't quite reach us.
Lately, such artillery duels have become rare, say the self-propelled artillerymen of the 118th. The occupiers no longer bring their howitzers close to the front line because for many kilometers along the line of contact, everything is monitored and destroyed by Ukrainian drones. Instead, there was a period in the Orikhiv area when, as counter-battery measures, the Russians used aviation.
They would detect where our artillery was firing from, and then they would launch KABs at that area. Usually a significant number of KABs, perhaps 10, 12, or even as many as 15, would frequently come in at once, all at the same time.
On the front line near Orikhiv, from the southeastern flank, the Russians tried once again to attack the 118th's defensive line. This time they were supported by a tank, 4 infantry fighting vehicles, and more than half a dozen fast snow buggies.
The enemy realized that they didn't have the strength to capture the city, let's put it that way. They don't have the means to storm into the city head-on. To take the city, you need not only manpower, but also a large amount of equipment. Right now, the 118th Separate Mechanized Brigade has been stationed here for more than 2 years already. And we are knocking out their equipment along a rather wide line of combat engagements.
Ukrainian scouts detected the enemy assault column while it was still approaching the line for deployment into battle formation. Our defenders destroyed a tank, 3 IFVs, and 4 buggies with precise drone strikes and artillery fire. Nearly 40 Russian soldiers ended their senseless existence on the approaches to Mala Tokmachka. The enemy assault collapsed before it even began. From the southern section of the front in Zaporizhzhia, Alexander Motorny, Alexander Shian, and Vitaly Ovsyanik. For TSN 1+1. Marathon United News.
Now that's a harvest. Our forces are taking out the occupiers in droves. The Russians are surrendering on their own, whining, and don't want to go on assaults anymore. Dobropilya is a frontline apple of discord, an assault by the Ukrainian armed forces. Our troops gave the enemy a serious thrashing. The Russian army has nothing left to replenish itself with. The generals have abandoned their soldiers to their fate. The Ukrainian armed forces took advantage of this and came up with a plan. What exactly? Don't miss what's next.
Meanwhile, the Ukrainian armed forces have already gotten acquainted with the newly arrived reserves. So, the day before, 4 fighters from the Skelya unit on their very first combat mission managed to capture twice as many enemies. That is almost an entire squad of occupiers. This way, our exchange fund was replenished with 9 Russians.
They told me, "Sir, drop your weapon." So I dropped my weapon. I took off my gear. They said, "Don't move, sit still, everything's fine." They led me calmly, gave me some water to drink. My hands were trembling a little.
Another direction where Russian prisoners are now counted by the dozens is in the Dobropilya area. The offensive that the occupiers managed to organize was cut short, and no success is expected for the enemy there.
We can already say that the exchange fund of the Ukrainian Defense Forces has been replenished by more than 6 dozen Russian occupiers. And the total losses of Russian occupiers in the Dobropilya direction, according to the main Directorate of Intelligence of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, have exceeded 1,000 personnel in just a week of fighting. These are significant losses for the Russian occupation army.
At the same time, under such difficult conditions, the armed forces of Ukraine still managed to advance. For example, over the past day near Kostiantynivka, the northern part of the settlement of Katerinivka was liberated. Additionally, our defense forces advanced west of Andriivka-Klutsevo, continuing to push back the occupiers' bridgehead in the Novopavlivka direction.
The Ukrainian army is under pressure, no doubt. But right now, they are even counterattacking. Yes, maybe these aren't large-scale counteroffensives, but nevertheless, they are very serious retaliatory strikes. And including on this Dobropilya salient, it seemed like many were saying, here it is, the collapse of the front has begun and the Russian army has broken through. But no, they counterattacked in time, stabilized the situation there, and are holding the line.
And experts say that the Russians have no prospects for significant success anywhere. For example, analyst Pavlo Norozhny believes that for the Russian army to advance now, they need armored vehicles. Otherwise, small infantry groups have virtually no chance. However, the Russian leadership is not providing equipment to the infantry. As for air support, there hasn't been any mention of it for about half a year now.
The use of Su-25 aircraft, which used to operate right near the front line, has practically stopped. The use of helicopters has also practically ceased, and if they are used from a very long distance, or it's some kind of staged firing just to make a video for RAI Novosti or TASS. In other words, overall, Russia stopped risking its aviation quite a while ago, and by 2025, such risks are practically eliminated.
Meanwhile, the Russian press continues to talk about a victorious autumn offensive. According to Vitaly Hesak, commander of the 423rd Unmanned Battalion, it will be even more disastrous than the summer one. After all, with the arrival of cold weather, there will be no so-called greenery. And so enemy concentrations will become more visible, which our drone pilots are already eagerly anticipating.
There are priorities for the enemy's offensive. They are obvious today. We had regular activity and very difficult conditions, and an extremely challenging situation. In the Lemon-Sybas direction, we also see a difficult situation. Of course, we're talking about Zaporizhzhia because Zaporizhzhia is active. This includes the use of corresponding diversionary actions by the enemy, but the main focus is Donetsk region.
Donetsk is also a priority for us, and not just along the front line of Avdiivka-Uteli. This was reminded to the occupiers the day before in the city of Seladov, when an entire ammunition depot was blown up right under the noses of the Russian command. An entire ammunition depot?
An incredible story of a rescue straight from the front line. He was convinced it was his last battle, but his comrades didn't let him die and launched a real special operation that makes your heart race. Right under the enemy's nose, a drone carries an electric bike through danger. Every second is a struggle for life, with a deadly gauntlet ahead. And so, the fighter who made it out of the trap seems to have been born under a lucky star. How this miracle became possible and who saved the hero, all the answers are in this story. Coming up...
Listen up. That's it. Listen. It's fine. Listen, it's fine. We're starting. This is the beginning of an incredible rescue story. A story worthy of a film adaptation happened not in a Hollywood studio, but on one of the hottest sections of the Ukrainian front. The main character is a fighter with the call sign Tankist. In the Siversk direction, he was holding his position together with 3 comrades. The group got surrounded. Everyone except the Tankist was killed. Wounded, the soldier fought off enemy assaults on zone for almost a week.
I was surrounded on all sides, completely alone. They say wherever they tried to get through, wherever they tried to break in, I fought back as best I could. Our guys were covering me.
Getting out of the encirclement seemed impossible. However, rescue came from the air.
It took a long time to make a decision. They spent a long time thinking about how to carry out the evacuation. They reconsidered the option with electric bicycles, which makes a heavy noise.
However, the soldier once again found himself on the edge. His vehicle hit a mine.
It ran over a pump. With the front wheel, the wheel was torn off, the bike broke. I fell. My leg unexpectedly hurt a lot. The guys ran out, picked me up, dragged me away. It hurt really badly in the thigh.
A tanker comes out of that smoke. With that same bike, he throws it aside. At that moment, I was in contact with the company commander. He had just chewed up all his elbows, all his nails from the stress.
Then there was another stage of evacuation. From zero to the so-called rear, the tanker had to do it again on a bike. After all, logistics in the Siversk direction is extremely problematic.
He was riding for literally about 15 minutes, but for us, it felt like half a lifetime. We were just watching. He made it through an extremely dangerous stretch as smoothly as possible. Even though it was a section where there's constant shelling and there are craters everywhere, he just flew through it. No one noticed him. He kept driving, shouting constantly into the radio. Tell them that I'm not an orc.
That's all from me for now. This was Yadarina Hudskalo with you. Even more hellish news from the front in our next broadcast. And in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. See you soon.